newest core set being announced, which is going to be all of these cards are given to you for free, and they will be the core set for the coming year for all of the classes. This is like your baseline set moving forward in standard, and they're going to give you all the stuff, so that's really nice, right? You're going to be able to use all of these cards and have a collection even if you haven't been keeping up with Hearthstone. So I think that's really good. But there's been some major changes and some new additions to cards that, you know, we haven't seen to make this core set. So we're going to go through them piece by piece and take it apart. And I think we will start with the Demon Hunter. So some of these are familiar, right? The Battle Fiend, Crimson Sigil Runner, Chaos Strike. This is all stuff that Demon Hunter has already. We do see the spell schools attached to them, which is kind of cool. Chaos Strike is a Fel, and Feast of Souls is a Shadow. Now, I may get a few of these numbers wrong, but I do believe that the Feast of Souls was buffed by 1 mana. And it used to be 3 mana. Corvus Bloodthorn is a new card that you're going to be getting. 2 mana, 2/2 charge, lifesteal. After you play a card with Outcast, return this to your hand. So, Sightless Watcher is the same. Spectral Sight's the same. Warblades, Coordinated Strength, all this is the same. I want to say this guy is a new fellow. The Gnarg Glavesmith does look to be a recent pickup for the Demon Hunter. This guy is the same. Raging Fel Screamer, Chaos Nova, Warglaves of Azzinoth. These have definitely been changed. These used to be more expensive card. I'm going to actually look up the change log so we can see the exact changes so I don't have to remember every card's exact stats offhand. So, here we have the Year of the Griffin simplified graphic. Yes, very easy to follow, of course. We're looking for the Warglaves of Azzinoth. I think I'll have to figure out how to navigate this a little better. Can we get a smaller zoom? There we go. Warglaves of Azzinoth was a 6 mana 3/4, and now it is a 5 mana 3/3. So it got reduced by 1, and durability also went down by 1. Okay, we'll hold this on the side just in case we need to compare some other cards. The Illidari Inquisitor, 8 mana 8/8 rush. After a hero attacks an enemy, this attacks it too. This is a new card. That seems pretty good. This would work on the enemy hero because it's not just limited to minions. It itself also has rush. This is an extremely strong minion. The demon on top of that, which benefits from all the synergies. Nice little crowning pickup for the Demon Hunter set. I think one of the things I've noticed when I looked at the cards they've introduced for the core set is they're often trying to give you enough general building blocks where you can make a deck and have like a big thing too that can finish your deck without having to invest in more packs, which is kind of nice, right? They're giving some good options for finishers. Okay, well, compared to Demon Hunter, Druid has seen a lot more changes. And in some ways, the changes are going to be the cards that aren't there. One of the most notable cards not there is Savage Roar. We don't get Savage Roar, and we'll see it in Shaman. We also don't get Bloodlust. Some sets have, or some cards have been there through the entire time. It's going to be weird seeing Druid without Savage Roar and Shaman without Bloodlust. Something that's been in their set since the very beginning through all of Hearthstone. But in this case, they won't have it. And I think the devs are hoping to, move some pieces around with other strategies that could be more powerful by taking these cards out, which is probably for the best. So we got Innervate is the same. Pounce, this is a returning card from Wild Mode. Same with Enchanted Raven. Just kind of staple Druid things, I guess. The 0 mana +2 attack actually seems kind of nice. It didn't see too much play back when it was released as a card. Maybe it'll make a resurgence. Mark of the Wild sees a buff. We get +1 extra health. It used to be 2/2, now it's 2/3. The Wild's the same. Feral Rage, returning wild card, choose one, 4 attack or 8 armor. It's a really flexible card. That did see a fair amount of play. Landscaping. So the tree end strategy, I think, is one of the ones that hopefully benefits later on from removing Savage Roar, because tree ants were often with Druid. If you let the Druid keep, 3 or 4 tree ants on the board, you're just dead the next turn. So it did hamstring them a bit from producing stronger cards in that strategy, and we'll see which way the devs move the tree ants now that they don't have Savage Roar. Wild Growth is the same. Nordrassel Druid, this is a new card. This is an extremely strong card. This is basically a 1-mana 3/5. For Druid, a class which can already manipulate mana something that's just a free card to dump out of your hands is really good. And we've seen that in the meta before with the cards that cost 0 when you've played a 5-mana spell. There was the 4/4 and the 3/5 taunt right now. Druids love these types of cards, so this is a really strong addition to their core set. Soul of Forest is the same. Druid of the Claw gets +1 attack on both forms, but it has rush instead of charge. And this is kind of a theme. We see a number of returning standard minions that are going to have rush instead of charge, and a small buff to compensate. Force of Nature is the same. Menagerie Warden is buffed by 1 mana. This is one of the early reveals. Choose a friendly beast, summon a copy. It used to be a 6 mana 5/5. 5 mana is a lot more flexible for a card of this type, because what you would want to do with it often is play a 5 mana beast and then copy it. So this way it's just like a perfect 10 mana turn to be able to hit both those. Nourish the same. Ancient of War is the same, and Cenarius has had 1 mana cost reduction. He's now 8 mana. So Druid saw some pretty major changes, but a lot of them were actually the cards that aren't there. The cards that are there are very similar and may have just been affected by a stat point or two. I think the Nordrassel Druid is a really interesting addition. Moving along to Hunter. Arcane Shot, the same. Arcane Spell, kind of cool. We have Lock and Load. Actually a card that I really liked, but was never considered very playable. It has the highlight moments, and in this case it's coming back with 1 mana cost reduction down to just 1 mana. I feel like this card will look a lot more impressive from its 2 mana wild counterpart, where it had not been used too much. It can be a really fun card though, so hopefully we'll see some moves. Tracking gets buffed. It no longer discards things. It now just discovers a card from your deck. You don't lose the other ones. Web Spinner, returning wild card, very standard. Add a random beast card to your hand. Explosive Trap, same. Freezing Trap, same. Headhunter's Hatchet. This is a returning wild card. If you control a beast, gain 1 durability. It's not bad. Quick Shot, returning wild card. Scavenging Hyena, it's the same. Selective Breeder. This is a new card. 2 mana 1/1. Battlecry, discover a copy of a beast in your deck. So a copy is a lot stronger than actually getting the thing drawn out in most cases. 2 mana 1/1 is just like a Novice Engineer though. The body on this is very weak and he's not a beast himself. So, we'll see. Snake Trap's the same. Bear Shark, returning a wild card, can't be targeted by effects. 3 mana 4/3. Deadly Shot, the same. Dire Frenzy, returning wild card. This is a really interesting playmaking card for Hunter, which is give a beast 3/3, shuffle 3 copies into your deck with 3/3. And this did see play back when it was released. This was a pretty solid pick for a number of decks that use synergy. I specifically remember the Vicious, or no, it wasn't, boy, the names. It was the 2 mana 1/3 with Rush Lifesteal, and they would buff that, and obviously it's really good because it had Rush Lifesteal, and then you would get more copies in your deck. So could for sure see play. This is a pretty strong card, and something that I think is like we were saying before, a nod to if you don't have a lot of cards, this is still something that's extremely strong, right? If you're like, I don't have a lot of hunter cards, but I really want to play a hunter. Well, you can throw in just some cheaper beasts and have Dire Frenzy be the added power of your deck without anything else required. Savannah Highmane, same, and King Crush is the same. Moving right along to Mage, we get Babbling Book, still the same. Shooting Star, returning wild card. And you'll note that Mage has no Arcane Explosion. So this is essentially your replacement to Arcane Explosion. In most cases, this is better, but it doesn't hit the entire board. So it is pretty different. This is the type of spell that did see play for quite a while when it was in the meta. So Snap Freeze is a returning wild card that also got buffed to 1 mana from 2 mana. Freeze a minion. If it's already frozen, destroy it. And I do think this is very strong. We will note, though, that we lost Frost Nova as well. There is no more Frost Nova and Blizzard. Blizzard has removed itself from Standard. No longer there. So it will be harder to pick up freeze things, but we'll see. Arcanologist, returning wild card, 2 mana, 2/3, Battlecry, draw a secret. This is a very strong card. It still sees play in Wild today. It has an ideal 2 mana body and draws a targeted card that you should be able to play on your next turn. So very strong. The Fallen Hero, returning wild card, your hero power deals 1 extra damage. Wasn't ever really used, but Arcane Intellect is the same. Cone of Cold is now Frost Nova. It costs 1 less mana, but we don't get Frost Nova. So Cone of Cold got buffed, and quite a big buff, making it 1 less mana to 3, much more flexible. But yeah, at the loss of Frost Nova, you're going to be seeing less board freeze effects. Yes, all of these core cards will be free. They're all going to be given to you right away. We got Counterspell is the same, Ice Barrier is the same. I guess the interesting part of this is the spell schools, right? We have Arcane, and this is actually a different spell school. Ice Barrier is Frost, so even represents its school there. Fireball, the same. Water Elemental, the same. One of the new additions for Mage. This would, I guess, replace Mr. Archmage Antonidas, who is not with us anymore. And in fact, we noticed that Mage lost a lot of its powerful late game cards with Archmage and Pyroblast. They're not going to be there as a finisher. So the Agewind is extremely strong. It is 5 mana, 5/5 plus 2 spell damage, which is really good for its body. And then it has Death Rattle. The next minion you draw inherits these powers. So that means the next minion is also going to have plus 2 spell damage and Death Rattle the next minion you draw. So it's kind of like a hand-me-down effect. Could be stopped by a silence or something, but it is quite strong. Just get plus 2 extra spell damage on every minion, as long as you're using them. The Ethereal Conjurer makes a return from wild mode, also with plus 1 extra health. It's a 5 mana 6/3 before, now it's a 6/4. Battlecry, discover a spell. He was actually used, not a ton, but there's another several cards actually that have had similar effects for 5 mana. Currently, there's the Elemental, which you can play, which is a 4/4 plus 1 spell damage. So he's not insane, but he's alright. Caldera Drake coming back with plus 1 health from wild mode. 6 mana, 6/7. You can use your hero power any number of times. And Flame Strike gonna get buffed by 1 damage to 5 damage. Moving right along to Paladin. Alright, Paladin, we got some secrets. Now, why do you think Noble Sack isn't a spell school of Holy, while Avenge is? Are we saying that dude there, he doesn't count as the spell school? Poor guy. Just taking the hit over and over again. He can't even get the recognition being a true Paladin. We got some secrets. Avenge, this is the same as a wild, which is when a friendly minion dies, give a random other friendly minion 3/2. Noble Sack returns, it's the same. And Reckoning, and this is a new secret for Paladin, which is after an enemy minion deals 3 or more damage, destroy it. So, this game is really good. I mean, this is a way that you could destroy big things quite easily, but it wouldn't be as good against smaller things. Obviously, it has some tech potential there, and I think it's a cool secret to keep your opponent thinking about it. Righteous Protector makes a return from Wild. This is a very strong 1-drop. This is basically the ideal combat 1-drop that most Paladins will probably use. It is a 1/1 with Taunt and Divine Shield. So it's like a Noyatron for half the mana. Very good value minion there. Arjun Protector returns as a 2-mana 3/2, which is a big buff for this minion. He was previously a 2-mana 2/2. Give a friendly minion Divine Shield. And yeah, he didn't really see much play, but I could see a 3/2 slipping in there. We got Holy Light returning with a buff. Now instead of 6 health, it restores 8 health, which is actually a pretty big buff. In general, you're going to get 8 health for 3 mana, so this is actually a very tempo efficient heal compared to most other heals in the game. We get a new card, Pursuit of Justice. Give +1 attack to your Silverhand recruits you summon this game. This is a persistent effect, of course, and you can run 2 of these in your deck, which makes it pretty cool. I think that's a strong early game dude card that you would love to play. The Aldor Peacekeeper returns, same as he was before. Equality coming back with a buff. Equality was much more expensive at 4 mana, now coming down to 3 mana. Still not quite as good as it was in the true olden days, but it's a powerful card, to be sure. The Warhorse Trainer, 3 mana, 3/4, was a 2/4 in wild mode, makes a return to standard. Your Silverhand recruits have +1 attack. Blessing of Kings is the same. Consecration is the same. True Silver Champion is the same. Stand Against Darkness is the same. 5 mana, 7/5 1/1s. Guardian of Kings gets a 1 health buff to be a 5/7. He was a 5/6 before, everything else the same. And Tyrion Forging, the same. So pretty consistent with the Paladin there. I think the most notable thing was the Pursuit of Justice and the Reckoning. Quite nice additions. Moving right along, we're on Priest. Priest getting a new 1-drop, which is the Crimson Clergy. After a friendly character is healed, gain 1 attack. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. This doesn't seem that strong, but a 1 mana 1/3 can be quite potent just because Priest often has some buffs and things that they would like to be hitting. And he does scale, so if you buffed his health, then his attack is going to come up on his own. I think he could be pretty threatening. Well, Light Warden has 1 less health than this, although Light Warden gains more attack. The early game 1 health makes an enormous difference. That's 50% of his health, right? If he was to take 1 away, or he gains 50% more than Light Ward. Flash Heal coming back. This is a wild card, which is just 1 mana, restore 5 health, but this can be targeted, unlike Radiance, which only heals your hero. You can target other things with this. That also means if you had something that turned your spells that heal into damage, you could use that, but it seems like Priest is losing those effects because we aren't getting Akanai Soul Priest back, and they don't have another way to do that currently. This might be the transition where Priest can no longer damage people with their healing spells, which is pretty interesting. They haven't been doing that too much lately, but that still was technically playable up until this point. This will be the first time Priests don't have the option to deal damage with targeted healing spells. Focused Will. This is a new one. Silence a minion, then give it 3 health. So this works on yours or their minions. Holy Smite is the same. Psychic Conjurer is the same. Culture and Chaplain is the same. Culture and Chaplain always 2 health. I think he was always 2 health, but I could be wrong and think that he might have been 3 health at some point. Check our notepad on the side here. Yeah, he's not listed as one that was changed, so I believe he was always 2 health. Shadow or Death is the same. Shadow Form making the return, and also 1 mana cheaper than previously. Shadow Form in the old days was 3 mana. Now it's 2 mana. Hero power becomes deal 2 damage, which is pretty strong. Thrive in the Shadows. This is a new card. This is discover a spell from your deck. So this is slightly different than the wild version, which was discover a copy of a spell. This now discovers a spell and you draw that card, so you won't get an extra copy of it. So it's slightly different than the previous wild version. It's listed as a shadow spell, but this priest doesn't look very shadowy. The Light Spawn making a comeback. The Light Spawn gets actually a pretty nice buff. Light Spawn used to be a 4 mana 5 health, which was a 5/5, of course. Now it's a 3 mana 4/4. A 3 mana 4/4 is extremely good body. And then it also has the effect on it, which the priest could try to use to their advantage. We get a new minion for priest, the Shadowed Spirit. 3 mana 4/3. Deal 3 damage to the enemy hero as a death rattle. And I think we can see later on when we look at some of the neutral cards, there's quite a few death rattle things that might have some potential. So death rattle could be quite valuable moving forward. Holy Nova is the same. Power Infusion is the same. Shadowward Rune is the same. Temple Enforcer and Natalie, all consistent with the current priest workings. Biggest thing for priest was probably, I mean, Shadow Spirit, Lightspawn are good. Thrive in Shadows is a good card for consistency too. All right, we're up to Rogue. Rogue, we got Backstab, Prep, Shadow Step, all the same. Hey, Deadly Poison's a nature spell. The Bladed Cultist is a returning card from Wilds. It's the same as it was. 1 mana 1/2 combo, gain 1/1. Deadly Poison's the same. Sinister Strike's the same. Swashbuckler returning from wild mode. Swashbuckler has been changed. Now instead of from your opponent's class, it will just give you a random card from another class. So this has to be one of the highest RNG potential cards in the game. You thought Babbling Book was crazy, but Babbling Book was just mage spells. Swashbuckler is all cards that are not rogue or neutral. So this thing has a lot of outcomes, and I bet we'll see some high roll potential out of him, because he's actually way higher randomness than before. I mean, this could easily get us a Jiraxis, which we'll see later. Cold Blood is the same. Patient Assassin gets a 1 health buff. This is actually a pretty strong minion. It was a 1/1, and so it was weak to just a bit of AoE damage. Oh, something I'm reminded of here that we forgot to mention in Druid is Druid also lost Swipe and Starfall. Sometimes the things that are missing are more noticeable, but Savage Roar, Swipe, and Starfall. So Druid actually has no AoE cards at all in their core set. And Rogue is the other class that has no AoE cards. Thank you so much. I am JT with a 3-month Prime Gaming. Enjoy the badge upgrade. Rogue also has no AoE cards. Rogue lost Fan of Knives and lost Blade Flurry, so they have no potential to do Area of Effect anymore. We didn't see too many rogues play AoE before, but it was probably something that they had to consider. So now it completely single target. Those are the only 2 classes that don't have AoE in their core set. And yeah, the Patient Assassin, he'll live through some small AoEs now, right? He might have a chance to get in there. Plus, as a stealth guy, I think he's pretty high potential. So, Vanessa Vancouver is one of the early reveals. This is the new Rogue Legendary, a 2 mana 2/3 combo. Add a copy of the last card your opponent played to your hand. Seems pretty good. The Plague Scientist returning from Wild, he's the same. SI Agent, the same. The Assassin's Blade gets a change. It was a 5 mana 3/4. Now it's a 4 mana 2/5. So technically lost a bit of total damage, but also got cheaper mana-wise. And the increased durability means it's more for weapon buff synergy. And I do think this is a great weapon for weapon buff synergy when you have Deadly Poison and the Nitro boost. Right now, there's so much good stuff that you could use a 5 durability weapon for that it's at least on par with its counterpart. So, pretty good buff. Assassinate got buffed by 1 mana. Now, destroy an enemy minion for 4 instead of 5. Tomb Pillager returns from Wild. Pretty strong card. This saw a lot of play when it was in Standard. So, I would imagine, or when it had its time in Standard. And I think it will probably see play in the future. And Sprint gets a buff. Sprint is now 6 mana instead of 7 mana. Okay. We're up to the Shaman. Shaman gets Lightning Bolt, the same. The Novice Zapper. Now, we've noticed that each class has a defining 1-drop. Okay? Each class so far has had a defining 1-drop in its core set. Swashbuckler, Crimson Clergy, Righteous Protector, Babbling Book, Web Spinner. And the Shaman one is, in my opinion, one of the strongest. And this is a completely new minion. This is a 1 mana 3/2, Overload 1, spell damage +1. So even as a 2 mana card, right, without the overload, 2 mana 3/2 +1 spell damage is very solid. So to get this 1 turn earlier, and of course dropping it on the very first turn means it's going to beat any other 1-drop from your opponent. This is quite powerful. Being able to combine spell damage for cheaper on your combo turns is good as well. I think the Novice Zapper will see lots of play. The Menacing Nimbus makes a return from Wild mode. It's the same. Battlecry, add a random elemental to your hand. Elemental has been a theme of the Shaman throughout. Rockbiter Weapon, interesting, is Nature. I wonder how they decided some of these. Now, see, like, Rockbiter Weapon, let's think about this, is Nature. But Sinister Strike was nothing. I feel like Sinister Strike could easily be Shadow if Rockbiter Weapon is Nature. But surely there's some balance reason that they want to attribute spell schools. I think the spell schools are really interesting, and we'll see how they play out in the future. But you just notice a difference there between some of the classes where it doesn't seem as though Rockbiter would be different. It's a physical type ability. We get Wind Fury returning, exact same. Feral Spirit gets a buff, pretty big buff. It has 1 less overload, so now it's 3 mana, 2/2/3 Wolves with Taunt, Overload 1 instead of Overload 2. Lightning Storm gets a buff where it always does 3 damage, which is big. Mana Tide is the same. Unbound Elemental is the same. The Draenei Totem Carver makes a return from Wild mode and gains 1 health. In Wild mode, it's currently a 4/4. This is Battlecry 1/1, gain 1/1 for each friendly totem. As a 4/5, it's a nice little buff. Yeah, it's a cool minion. We got Hex is the same. Tidal Surge. This makes a return from Wild mode, and it's actually different, where now it is Lifesteal, where previously it was just heal you for 4, so it didn't scale the healing with spell damage. We got Doomhammer coming back is the same. Earth Elemental coming back is the same. Fire Elemental coming back with a small buff, now does 4 damage with the Battlecry instead of 3. And Alakir the Windlord coming back also with a small buff, 1 extra health. Man, you got a lot of elementals in this core set. I mean, elemental, and then 3 elementals. Some nice synergy there. We're up to the Warlock. Here we got Ritual of Doom, one of Warlock's new cards. 0 mana. Destroy a friendly minion. If you had 5 or more, summon a 5/5 demon. This was really interesting. Would work with some token builds. Make you use your brain a little bit, figure out how to get the board full, and then Boom, get a free 5/5. I mean, it's a 0-mana tempo swing, and presumably you're going to turn a 1/1 into a 5/5. So that's a pretty big buff. Like, this is a free Blessing of Kings on a minion. It just has to be a small minion is the only consideration. But if you had 5 minions, like, for sure one of those minions will be a sacrificable one. Flame Imp makes a return. It's the same. Mortal Coil, it's the same. It's a shadow spell. We got Possessed Villager making a return from Wild Mode. He is the same. Drain Soul also coming back from Wild Mode. This gets a buff. This now does 3 damage instead of 2 damage. The Tiny Knight of Evil is the same. Void Terror gets a 1 health buff from a 3/3 to a 3/4. Fiendish Circle, same, pretty sure. 4 mana, summon 4 imps. Hellfire is the same. Warlock is one of the classes that has access to 3 spell schools, huh? Because we have some fire, shadow, and fell. I think Mage had that as well. Shaman lost a lot of stuff when you think about all of the things in Classic for Shaman, like no Frost Shock. Maybe Shaman will just lose its freeze component entirely moving forward. We got the Lakari Felhound coming back from Wild Mode. 4 mana, 3/8. Haunt, Battlecry, discard your 2 lowest cost cards. It used to be random cards, so this is a small buff for it. Now specifically targets its discard, which is better. It's a very high stat minion too. The Fell Soul Jailer is a new card for Warlock, never before seen. 5 mana, 4/6 demon. Battlecry, your opponent discards a minion. Death Rattle, return it. So, kind of a nice tech breaker. It wouldn't be permanent unless you did something to make it permanent, but Siphon Soul, getting a buff to 5 mana, destroy a minion, restore 3 health. So just a straight 1 mana buff from 6. Dread Infernal is the same. We have a new minion, the Enslaved Fell Lord. 7 mana, 4/10. Also damages the minion next to whomever this attacks. Not my favorite minion. Feels like pretty weak for its mana cost, but maybe you can do things because it's a demon to make it more efficient. We got Twisting Nether, returning is the same, and Jiraxxus returns with an enormous buff. Jiraxxus' effect is the same, where you get a 3/8 and your hero power becomes Summon an Infernal. The difference is Jiraxxus now gains you 5 armor and doesn't change your health total. You'll still have 30 health, which means Jiraxxus is an extremely strong finishing card, even by modern standards. He doesn't reduce you to 15 health anymore. Huge buffs on the Jiraxxus. All right, we're up to the final class, the Warrior. Warrior gets a brand new 1-drop. The Bloodsail Deckhand. 1 mana, 2/1. The next weapon you play costs 1 less. We have Shield Slam returning as the same. Whirlwind returning as the same. Armor Smith is the same. Taskmaster. Execute all the same. Slam, Fiery War Axe, Frothing Berserker. Up to here, everything's been the exact same. Now we have War Cache. This is a brand new warrior card, which is 3 mana. Add a random warrior minion spell and weapon to your hand. So you get 3 cards for 3 mana. This is a really efficient draw, even though it's random stuff. I think there's a lot of power potential there because warriors like to go to the late game and play the value match. So pretty strong. Warsong Commander coming back with a big buff. No longer terrible minion. It will now give every minion you play, not just play, summon, give it rush. Summon, of course, is tokens and death rattle effects. This is potentially really strong. We do see a lot of rush mechanics in the game already. Not sure quite how it'll fare amongst them, but Warrior gets a replacement for the Korkron here with Warsong Outrider. 4 mana, 5/4 with Rush. So it's 1/1 more stat than Korkron, but it has Rush instead of Charge. We got Brawl returning as the same. Shield Maiden returning from Wild Mode, same as it was. Gorehowl, also same as it was. And Mr. Grommash, consistently there, hasn't changed a bit. All right, we completed the classes. Now we're on to the neutrals. So, Murloc Tinyfin is our new Wisp. I guess Wisp is no longer with us. Now the Murloc Tinyfin. The Abusive Sergeant, the same. Arcane Anomaly, the same. Arjun Squire, the same. Cogmaster returns from Wild Mode. He's the same as he was. +2 attack. Well, you have a mech. Elven Archer, unchanged. I'm kind of surprised by, considering Penflinger is insane tier. I think they could have done something to make Elven Archer a little more exciting. Murloc Tidecaller is the same. Stone Tusk Boar is changed, now a 1 mana 2/1 Rush instead of Charge. Voodoo Doctor is the same. Organ Infiltrator is the same. Young Priestess is the same. Acidic Swamp Booze, Annoyatron returning from Wild Mode, unchanged. Blood Mage Thalnos, unchanged. Bloodsail Raider, unchanged. The Bluegill Warrior has gained 1 attack, I guess similar treatment to the Boar, and they couldn't just make it a 2/1 rush for 2, could they? So now it is a 3/1 rush. Crazed Alchemist, the same. This guy's a fancy card. I'm a little surprised to see him coming back. The Crazed Alchemist has often been an extreme effect that hasn't seen much play, but there have been its moments where it's been used to kill Doomsayers or totems. And on that note, we might notice there's no more Doomsayer in the core set. Doomsayer has been removed. Direwolf Alpha, the same. Explosive Sheep, essentially what the replacement for Doomsayer must be. This returns from Wild Mode, which is 2 mana 1/1, Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to all minions. So it actually did see play in a few different decks when it was around. The Fog Sail Freebooter is a brand new minion, never before seen. 2 mana 2/2 Pirate, Battlecry. If you have a weapon equipped, deal 2 damage. We got Cobalt Geomancer, unchanged. Loot Hoarder is the same. No Novice Engineer, which is interesting. We lose Novice Engineer, but we keep Loot Hoarder. Mad Bomber is the same. Murloc Tidehunter, the same. We got Nerubian Egg coming back from Wild Mode. It's a very strong Death Rattle effect. It saw tons of play when it was around. There's a reason for it. A 4/4 is a great minion. Even moving into the mid and late stages of the game, you can use this type of Death Rattle for powerful swings. So I think its tempo efficiency will remain high, and it'll probably see good amounts of use. River Crocolisk returns. I don't know why. Like, what are they smoking? Who's gonna play River Crocolisk? It's just better minions, but yeah, he's unchanged. Still has no effect. Sad Grok is still sad. Sunraver Spy, 2 mana 2/3. If you control a secret, gain 1/1. This is a wild card, right? I'm pretty sure this has seen its time in standard before, but it's returning. 2/2 Toxicologist. Battlecry, give your weapon +1 attack. This is a neutral weapon buff. The Toxicologist for sure was a thing. I don't remember it having this type of effect before, so maybe it was changed a bit. Might see some play. Youthful Brewmaster is the same. Brightwing, the same. Cold Light Seer, unchanged. Earthen Ring Farsteer, still consistent. The Flesh-Eating Ghoul gets a buff. It was a 2/3, now it's a 3/3. Humongous Razorleaf returns from Wild Mode. 3 mana 4/8, can't attack. So you can give this taunt, or you can silence it, try to do things. Ice Rager returns from Wild Mode he's basically Magma Rager, but now he has 2 health instead of 1 health. Right, he's 3 mana, 5/2, elemental. He's okay. Injured Blade Master, the same. Iron Beak Owl, the same. Jingle Panther. It's interesting, they could have used this moment to just completely take silence out of the neutral set. Since this is the only, like, true targeted silence left in the neutral set, but they chose to keep it, so. Jingle Panther unchanged. King Mukla still around. Lone Champion. If you control no other minions, gain Taunt and Divine Shield. This never really saw play, but it was a wild card. Just didn't get too much time. Mini Mage gets a huge buff. This was a 4-mana 4/1 stealth spell damage +1. Now a 3-mana 3/1 stealth spell damage +1. And that's a really strong minion. A stealth spell damage effect can be hard to deal with and set up a combo turn. I think he could be pretty impressive. Raid Leader gets a buff of 1 health. He's now a 2/3. South Sea Captain, the same. Spider Tank returns from Wild Mode. Stoneskin Basilisk returns from Wild Mode. I actually like this card. I think this card's low-key really strong. Divine Shield 1/1 Poisonous. Like, it's a 99 attack Divine Shield 1 health minion. So, it could have its moments. Baron Rivendare returns from Wild Mode. Your minions trigger their death rattles twice. And I think we've noticed a bunch of powerful death rattles coming back. Right now, there's not a lot of great death rattles, and they're used sparingly, only in really refined builds. That's also partly because of the way the meta works right now, but we'll see. Maybe death rattles make a big swing back. We got Big Game Hunter still around, and he got a buff. Big Game Hunter is now a 4-mana 4/2. BGH has seen the full treatment. He was the 3-mana, then the 5-mana, and now the 4-mana. Maybe he'll find the right place here. Chillwind Yeti, like the River Crocolisk, comes back despite obviously being inferior to other minions of the same cost, but Chillwind Yeti is still there, unchanged. The Dark Iron Dwarf coming back, exactly the same. Defender of Argus gets a 1 attack buff. Give adjacent minions 1/1 and taunt. Now it's a 3/3 instead of a 2/3. Grim Necromancer. Battlecry summon 2 1/1 skeletons. Let me double check this one. I think this one this isn't a new card, is it? It might be a completely new card. Alright, we're running the numbers right now. No, this is not a completely new card. I think this is a wild card unchanged. So, didn't see too much play at its time, but there. We get the Destroy a Random Enemy Secret Tech card, 4-mana 5/4 SI Infiltrator, which is actually pretty strong for a tech card. I mean, why would you ever play Chillwind Yeti when you can at least play SI Infiltrator? Couldn't Yeti have got a buff? Couldn't you have made him a 4/6? I don't know. Just figure something out, man. Like, yeah, SI Infiltrator is just better than Yeti for the most part. It's a strong tech card. Zenjin also unchanged. 4-mana 3/5 taunt. Violet Teacher unchanged. They're really stubborn about some of those 4-drops. Faceless Manipulator coming back. This guy's been around since the start of Hearthstone and continues to hang out the same as he has been. Urubashi Berserker. Still the same, pretty sure. Overlord Runthak is a brand new addition for the core set, never before seen. 5-mana 3/6 rush. Whenever this attacks, give 1/1 all minions in your hand. So, a little hand buff synergy there. Stranglethorn Tiger coming back the same. Talion Fordring, also a brand new, never before seen. 5-mana 3/3 taunt Divine Shield. Death Rattle, draw your highest cost minion. So, yeah, I mean, how much is a 3/3 taunt Divine Shield worth, right? We might say he's a little too expensive, but drawing your highest cost minion is a very specific effect that I think will have room to for sure see some play. You can target that on a lot of different things, depending on what type of deck you want to build. We got Cairn Bloodhoof coming back with a buff not only to Cairn, but also to Bane. They're now both 5/5s instead of 4/5s. Auctioneer coming back as the same. High Inquisitor Whitemane gets a buff. It was 7-mana, 6/8, and now it's a 6-mana 5/7, so it lost a bit of stats, but it got 1 cheaper. Summon all friendly minions that died this turn. Baron Gedden gets a massive buff. He gets a 2 health chonkaroo on him. Instead of a 7/5, he's now a 7/7. His effect remains consistent. In actual classic Hearthstone, Baron Gedden saw quite a bit of play as a removal tool, but we hadn't seen him really at all, so probably the buff is sizable enough to matter in this case. Baron's Stable Hand. This guy is a wild card. Even you'd think he's forged in the Baron's card because he's the Baron's Stable Hand, but no, this guy is a wild card. Was he a changed wild card, or is that how he always was? This guy has been changed. He was a 7 mana 4/4, now he's a 5/5. This guy relies a lot on what the quality of random beasts is, so it's hard to tell. Nasdormu the Eternal has been changed. All of the dragons, in fact, every single one of the large dragons has been changed. The legendaries. Nasdormu is now a 7 mana 8/8. Start of the game, if this is in both players' decks, turns are only 15 seconds long. Well, he got a 2 mana buff, basically, because his effect never did anything, and now his effect still doesn't do anything, but he's 2 mana cheaper. So that's a pretty big buff for Nasdormu. Stormwatcher coming back is the same. We got Stormwind Champion getting a buff, is now a 7 mana 7/7, so that's 1/1 extra stats. He was a 6/6. Arcane Devourer coming with quite a change. He was a 5/5. This was an 8 mana 5/5, now going to be a 8 mana 4/8. Its effect is the same, but obviously it's much harder to remove, and that looks pretty threatening depending on the type of deck you're playing. I think he could be pretty big. Alex Strazza, the Lifebinder. 9 mana 8/8. Choose a character. If it's friendly, restore 8 health. If it's an enemy, deal 8 damage. So, way more flexible, but doesn't do 15 damage to the opponent anymore when they're at full health. This is a much more flexible card that you could see you'd actually just target stuff with, which I think is a nice change. Malygos the Spellweaver, 9 mana 4/12. He is the same body, but he's now a battle cry. Draw spells until your hand is full. So this would just draw from your own deck. It's not random spells. We got Onyxia the Broodmother, 9 mana 8/8. At the end of each turn, fill your board with 1/1 whelps. So it's a pretty big buff. It's going to do its initial effect, and then it's going to do it each turn after if it stays on the board. The Sleeping Dragon returns from Wild. It is unchanged. Ysera the Dreamer, 9 mana 4/12. Add one of each dream card to your hand. And a couple of the dream cards had a tweak, I think, as well. And then we have Deathwing the Destroyer. Battlecry, destroy all other minions. Discard a card for each destroyed. So this no longer throws away your whole hand, and potentially you just discard one card if you need him to kill something really big. Sounds kind of nice. There's 12/12. Kill his guy. Play a 12/12. You got to throw something away, but actually a nice power swing because, yeah, you just never really recovered from throwing away your whole hand in Modern Hearthstone. I think this is a good way to do it. And we get the Clockwork Giant returning from Wild Mode. Cost 1 less for each card in your opponent's hand. This was always a really strange giant. I'm surprised they bring that one back, but he is the same. And that'll do it, guys. We got through all of the new core set. There was a lot of changes there. All the dragons, bunch of buffs, a lot of friends missing too. And I think that's one of the most noticeable things is the friends that are missing. The things that we were used to that won't be there. Where's the Eviscerate? No longer there. Shadowward Pain? Not a thing. Priest, Warlock, Rogue, Druid, everybody's getting changes. So we're going to have to figure them out one step at a time. A lot to take in, but I think it should be fun.